As we told you Tuesday, the website Futurism reports Sports Illustrated published articles by fake AI-generated authors. Authors like Drew Ortiz, who, according to a since-deleted bio, grew up in a farmhouse. Or there's Sora Tanaka, who loves to try different foods and drinks. The problem is, both their photos were reportedly found on a website that sells AI-generated headshots. In a statement that does not address the origin of the photos, the magazine's owner said the articles in question were licensed content from an external third-party company, Advon Commerce. Advon has assured us that all of the articles were written and edited by humans. For more on how AI is changing the media landscape, let's bring in Seth Lewis. He's a professor and director of journalism at the University of Oregon. Thank you for joining us. So let's start with the business. Help us understand the business model that would drive a media outlet like Sports Illustrated to consider using AI-generated content.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's a great question. I think it's the fundamental question here. We're seeing, I think, the kind of culmination of some really challenging tendencies and trends in digital media. When we think about what's happened to legacy media providers like Sports Illustrated in moving online over the last 15, 20, even 25 years, there's been a difficulty in kind of figuring out how do you make this work in a profitable way. And particularly now that these legacy media brands that used to have some degree of control over what they did and how they reached people, they're competing with everything else interesting online, from Netflix to YouTube to video games. And so all media companies are sort of stretched in this pursuit for attention. And we've seen over the past 10 years a real push for scale and reach. But that has led to some cutting of corners, whether in terms of asking human reporters to produce more content, or now, obviously, generative AI offers a tempting possibility to do even more with less, with serious ethical consequences.
And so how do readers recognize something that's been produced by artificial intelligence?
Yeah, that's a really tricky aspect of all of this. I mean, in the almost exactly 1 year since ChatGPT really became such a popular app available to everyone, there hasn't really been developed a truly foolproof method of being able to tell what is generated by that type of tool and what is not. And I actually think we're probably, we overestimate our ability to actually know what is truly generated by AI. I mean, so I think, we can look for certain tells, like an overly stilted or formal quality. The content has a certain generic feel to it. And I think we're going to see a growing glut of this type of boilerplate sounding blasé content. But our actual ability to detect these things can be a bit challenged. And this really is one of the fundamental challenges we face today as consumers of information.
And of course, human journalists push to produce more content end up creating content that isn't that dissimilar from AI content because they don't have any time to do their work. But let me ask you this question. There is a theory that in the attention game, there is so much thin material that actually deeply reported, well-told stories actually do provide a glass of water in the desert for readers. Is there any actual evidence to that effect, or are we all just wishful thinking?
I think what we've seen in the last several years is a clear shift away from advertising-based models for news to ones that are more, involving more reader revenue or subscription, other forms of subsidy. And I think that suggests that people are willing to pay for high-quality content. And so there will always be an opportunity to produce really good content and then find a way to monetize that good reporting. So I think that's an optimistic take on where we're at. But it's true that there's going to be some difficulty in needing to stand out. In fact, maybe the answer here is that amid so much generative AI-produced material, perhaps there's going to be more incentive for artisanal or highly crafted content that could appeals to people and that people are willing to pay for.
Amen. Let me ask you this question, staying on that optimistic note. Is there a way in which artificial intelligence can be useful to reporters and to readers in augmenting the work that journalists traditionally do?
Absolutely. I think one of the lessons here for us to take away is that at an individual level, tools like ChatGPT and other generative AI tools really do have some promise in terms of individual level productivity, improving the work that we do. That being said, of course, they can be misused and misapplied. But I think for journalists, just like any other knowledge worker, these tools can be personal assistants. They can be like interns. They can help to augment and extend the work that we're trying to accomplish. But again, there are ways in which we have to be careful of facticity. These tools are notorious for what's called hallucinations, or just simply making up stuff in trying to generate the next predictive word in the generation of content. And so I think we're going to see ways in which journalists, like other people working with information, are going to find ways to harness these tools to help them do more work. And I think the big question is this work better? Is it better journalism? Is it factual? Is it accurate? Is it helpful and relevant and true? And if so, then we should embrace these tools for what they can do well. And if not, then we need to be especially careful for how they're applied.
Excellent questions to put to any journalism created by a human or a machine. Professor Seth Lewis, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.